The tale of Oak Island might have just taken a momentous shift with an amazing finding on Lot 24. For centuries, the island is shrouded in obscurity, with every turn in the treasure search adding more queries than responses. However, this most recent discovery may ultimately push the mystery that leads to a startling resolution. What was discovered about this modest plot of land? Would it disclose the truth behind the fabled curse of Oak Island? Nestled on the southern coast of Nova Scotia, Oak Island, on the shore, has long been a draw for both dreamers and adventurers. Each and every this little island's corner appears to possess a hint. Lot 24 now enters the limelight, a peaceful area of land that can conceal one of the most crucial mysteries. Connected to the island's centuries-old mystery, let's go back. In 1761, Samuel Ball was born on a rice farm, plantation close to Charleston, South Carolina. This wasn't your typical plantation. It was well known for its harsh circumstances. Growing rice was exhausting. It required fields that were swampy, backbreaking work, and ongoing exposure to illness such as diarrhea, malaria, cholera. It was there, you name it, include in addition to the constant danger of violence. And existence was a never-ending circle of survival. For the initial 18 years of his Samuel had to deal with the type of difficulties that most of us cannot even begin to imagine. However, in 1776, history changed dramatically. The American Revolution was underway, and desperate to weaken the British Army, the rebels took a surprising action. In 1779, Sir Henry Clinton, the general, issued a declaration guaranteeing liberty to slaves who managed to flee the rebellion proprietors and allied with the British. It wasn't complete freedom, yet it was a lifeline. There were 50 slaves, including Samuel Ball, those who took advantage of this opportunity, departing the Ball plantation to enter from behind lines in Britain. Following service in South Samuel with the British Army in Carolina, Ball discovered that he was traveling north to New York, the place where, let's say, intriguing. He became a loyalist. Volunteers for Refugees, a group with a renown for audacious raids and moves. This was not your normal military situation. Collective, they were raiding rebels out there. Residences, purchasing commodities, and carrying out what wartime required. Yes, during a period of calm, this would have been absolutely unlawful. However, it was a survival tactic during the conflict. During this entire period, Samuel was learning. It could have come from the missions or the folks with whom he collaborated. He took up abilities that would benefit him in the future traverse the complex financial landscape and company. As a matter of fact, some of these lessons might not have included a how-to guide to maintain their legal status, but they were efficient. Even though the British won the war early on, changed dramatically in 1781, the American military executed a decisive victory, and that loss pushed Samuel Ball forward with innumerable other British loyal people to make a decision that changes your life. He ran away to Canada, was under British occupation, and the Royal had pledged land, goods, and freedom to black people under slavery in return for their allegiance. Consequently, a surge of migration. Almost 5,000 black supporters showed up in the formation of 50 historic black communities. Many people settled in Shelburne or the surrounding area. Samuel had other ideas for Birchtown, but he had bought a 4-acre plot of land on Oak in 1787 Island, Lot 25 for that's thousands of dollars in current currency. It wasn't a wealth, but at the time it was a good amount, particularly for someone beginning anew. However, why Oak Island? It's remote, not exactly prime real estate, secluded and encircled by trees. A few believe that his choice could have a connection to his neighbor, James Anderson. The captain, who was the owner of the Lot 26, is adjacent. Was there a chance for a deeper relationship or common interest between both of them? Regarding Captain James, his like Samuel's, life had its twists. Anderson was born in Maryland and raised to turn into a privateer and pirate during the Revolution in America. At first, he swore allegiance to the United States, but subsequently made the final twist in the plot. After being given the order he defected from an American ship to the British. This was not well received at the time. Future President and Governor of Virginia, Anderson was slapped by Thomas Jefferson with accusations of piracy and high treason. Anderson ran away from the heat to Canada before arriving at Oak Island, purchasing Lot 26. There, he resided up to 1788, a short distance from Samuel Ball's Lot 25. Now, were Samuel and Anderson aware of something that was previously hidden on Oak Island? Did they even show up? What we are aware of is that following Anderson's departure, Samuel Ball purchased his lot. Samuel was doing well by that time, en route to constructing an outstanding portfolio of real estate. Samuel began his career as a cabbage grower, transformed his 4 acres into a vast larger. In 1790, he even bought Hook Island, which is close by, for $6 a good amount for the period. However, let's be could cabbage cultivation be done on its own? Finance such a real estate flurry? Historians disagree that the British government's awarding agreements with emancipated black settlers to provide supplies to the armed forces may have had a part. It makes logic, to be honest. In the British Navy, for example, cabbage was a saving of life. They actually utilized cabbage to make sauerkraut, which is an essential source of vitamin C, which assisted sailors in fending against scurvy during extended travel. At the peak of demand, Samuel probably took advantage of profitable agreements with the Navy, supplying the ship-keeping sauerkraut sailing. However, as to previous booms, this one possessed its bust. Eventually, the Navy switched to consuming limes as a source of vitamin C, simpler to transport and store, which left the market for cabbages high and dry. However, Samuel's fortune didn't just remain steady. It continued to expand. Then arrived 1795. This year was a watershed, not only for Oak Island, but also for Samuel Ball itself, at which point 3 young males discovered what would turn out to be the island's greatest persistent enigma, the Lot 18's alleged money pit. It began rather innocently. The males observed an odd depression in the earth and an ancient ship's tackle above it brick that is suspended from a tree. Curiosity got the superior among them, and they started digging. What they discovered was incredible. They struck a wooden platform 30 feet below, constructed with wood beams, and it continued. There, below that, every 10 feet, the pattern that was repeated. This wasn't a coincidence. It was intentional, an artificial structure with intention. During the next for decades, treasure seekers maintained excavating, moving more and farther, occasionally over 150 feet, looking for whatever lay beneath. However, back in 1795, the initial dig only reached roughly 30 feet. Following the discovery of the money pit, Samuel Ball wasn't a passive observer. Cultivating cabbage, he began purchasing lots of land. By the time it's over, Samuel owned more than just Lot 25, as well as Lot 7, 8, 24, 31, 32, and 36 on Oak Island. And that's not all. He furthermore acquired an additional 100 acres on the mainland. That's a significant quantity of property for a single farmer. However, if the cabbage industry wasn't very successful, what was the source of the funds? What did Samuel actually have a connection to the funds? Pitt's finding? This was not like the norm conduct for an average farmer. Did he discover anything worthwhile in those initial digs? A portion of the actual treasure. The Lots Hidden Story 24. In 2016, metal detecting expert Gary Drayton as well as Charles Barkhouse, a historian from Oak Island, chose to look for solutions in Lot 24 that could provide insight on the island's greatest mystery. What they discovered was unexpected. Coins were discovered. While they inspected the property, further artifacts began to emerge. Everyone is whispering hints of a more extensive tale. The proof suggested that the military camps in Britain were established on the island long before Samuel Ball arrived in the 1700s along. This finding was related to a long-standing hypothesis proposed by Fred Nolan, a treasure hunter who thought Oak Island was never solely focused on the money hole. It was connected to an extensive British military action. The work of Fred Nolan concepts gained traction once he purchased in 1963. There were 7 parcels on Oak Island. Nolan, a proficient land surveyor, turned into fascinated by the unusual stone markers dispersed around the island. To him, these indicators weren't chosen at random. They suggested not just the building of not only at the money hole, but also at the grave of tiny caches of hidden treasure throughout Oak Island. However, where would all of that whereas the riches come from? Nolan possessed a hypothesis, and it was connected to one of the best historical treasure captures. Let's go back in time to the 7 Years' War, a global conflict that began in 1756 up until 1763. This was no small European quarrel. It spanned the world, starting in Africa to the Caribbean and India. By 1761, King Charles III of Spain had taken sides with Britain's decision to declare war on France and Spain. Shortly thereafter, in 1762, Havana was overrun by the British in one of the most famous fights in war. Havana wasn't merely a crucial port. It was gold. Mine was full of wealth. As soon as when the British captured the city, they took an enormous treasure. Historical narratives value it between 2 and 3 Historical narratives value it between 2 and 3 billion dollars, the value of today. But there's still a mystery. Although roughly $800 million was according to British records, billions others disappeared. Thus, the query is, where was it successful? Following Havana's pillage, British ships hugged the north as they sailed towards Halifax, coast of America. Had they been able to unload a portion of their loot covertly on Oak Island prior to transporting the remaining to Britain? According to Nolan's theory, yes, and that the property owned by Samuel Ball may have been one of the hiding spots. This notion that treasures were concealed in several caches throughout the island has retained innumerable treasure seekers looking for generations, such as the team led by Rick and Marty Laganina brothers. Among the most fascinating findings have originated from property that Samuel formerly held. Ball, similar to Lot 6, 2014 saw Terry Vo, the New England Vice President Antiquities Association, became a member of the group. To look into Lot 6, as you are clearing utility metal detectors and a brush, Jack Begley, a treasure hunter, observed anything odd. I saw this point sticking out. Jack said remembered. This kind of bizarre gray stone is typical in Nova Scotia and typically disintegrates. This one is different, of course. It has a piece added that is nearly identical to formed into a point. It doesn't appear organic. Why it was even more intriguing was the flat surface of the rock. It appeared as if it had previously served as either the rear wall or the cover stone of anything concealed. Would Lot 6 have previously a treasure site? Even more, it's interesting to consider that Samuel Ball may have been aware of British attempts to conceal treasures on Oak Island. Stories or rumor he might have acquired while serving his own armed forces of Britain. The legacy of Samuel Ball and Code. 2019, when Marty Laganina and Rick made the decision to use ground-penetrating technology to delve even more. Radar, they looked over Lot 25, the location of the original farmhouse of Samuel Ball. What they discovered was remarkable. An unusual hole or potential tunnel close by the basis for Samuel's house. The archaeologist Luraire's discovery now will obtain a permit for more research. He accepted Samuel's Lot 25 selection may have been purposeful, connected to what he learned while serving in the British Armed Forces. When excavation got underway, the crew took more care. As they went farther, the more there were queries. Belonged to Samuel Ball simply said, money is the outcome of cunning company. Or was he protecting a lot of bigger secret? The fact that Samuel Ball had a home built during the 18th century is noteworthy. Houses such as these were uncommon, particularly for someone of his history. It makes sense why analysts believe there are numerous components that are missing from how all of this was accomplished by Samuel. As they excavated beneath the foundation and found took a crazy turn. Before long, they struck the anomaly observed in the earth, a secret tunnel and a piercing radar scan below Samuel's house. For the group, this was a crazy moment. However, what is the purpose of this tunnel? In the course of the team discovered a stone during excavating. Box drain originating from the southeast, a 4-foot deep nook of the cellar, resulting in a low region. Additionally, the large why was it there? I wonder. While they cautiously investigated the tube, their attention was drawn to how firmly it had been constructed. However, when they added a little camera into the empty space, it showed to be devoid of anything. Empty, yet with suspicion purposeful. In the meanwhile, more the results of the research showed that Samuel Ball's land was more than just a house. It was a procedure. They discovered proof of several outbuildings dispersed throughout the terrain. Even more, the quantity of cleared land is intriguing. 7 acres made up Samuel's property, far greater than what he would have had to maintain his little family. It indicates a one researcher's side project recommended, then another inquisitive discoverer in 2020, 5 years after the research. As the spoils were being sifted away from the homestead, the group discovered a textile artifact. Indeed, the relic had uneven edges, and when examined more closely, it was discovered to be a component of a jacket from the British Navy, the approximate era, 1804 up until 1825. What does all of this mean, then? Samuel Ball's homestead served as more than just a location to live. The secret passageways, the buildings, as well as the vast cleared the land implied something far larger was continuing. Every new finding leads us to getting a better grasp of Samuel Ball's enigmatic existence, but also generates new queries regarding whether secrets might still be interred on his property. Among the numerous findings connected to the mysterious life of Samuel Ball, one artifact is distinctive: a gilded gold button for the commander and master officers from the Royal Navy of Britain. With a scanner for computed tomography, Larnan, an archaeologist, discovered this amazing discovery. What makes this button so important? It's not merely anybody would have. A master and the commander officer was in charge of loading ships in the Royal Navy. A crucial stance to some. This button is tied Samuel Ball to the British Directly Navy following the money's discovery pit. One team member said that he was trading, which is the obvious answer. Alongside the British Navy, he held onto his relationships and participated in them in some way. However, the larger query, what did he exchange? Including the source of this conjecture was the unidentified box drain or tunnel discovered on Lot 25 under Samuel's dwelling. It extended in a southeast direction, coastline. The inquiry by the team took a stranger turns increasingly weirder when a neighboring another hint was offered by structure. Here's Rick Laganina remembered an encounter that he had while exploring Lot 26 alongside Dan, the renowned treasure hunter Blankenship. He recalled their arrival through a well. It was the deceased of far below freezing in the winter, yet there had no ice on it. This well is situated on Samuel Ball used to possess Lot 26, and it turned become a focal point for additional examination after the group noticed that it didn't freeze, regardless of the temperature. The occurrence led to Dr. Ian Spooner, geoscientist, and Larry Hernan, an archaeologist, will gather samples of water and organic compounds from the well. The outcomes were remarkable. As Dr. Spooner disclosed, we received samples between the well and one of our outside the money pit, only silver hits. This presented an intriguing prospect. Under Samuel Ball's tunnel, could Homestead should be associated with this enigmatic well? Then, just offshore from Lot 25 at Samuel's house, another the enigma was enhanced by discovery. In 2020, while exploring the waterways around Oak Island, the group discovered something amazing: the remnants of a huge stone fortress over 100 feet long and 16 feet wide lengthy. This building was far bigger than what a poor farmer of cabbage would require to get rid of crops. The work of Samuel Ball, there is no denying resourcefulness. He was competent and obviously had connections. According to some, he might have constructed the wharf as a component of a profitable agreement collaborating with the British Navy, providing cabbage to keep their ships free of scurvy. Others wonder if it had a more covert purpose, objective, possibly connected to smuggling or even protecting valuables. The potential that Samuel Ball was more than just a farmer becomes more resilient with every finding. Some people think he might entrust it to them by the British military to protect Oak's Treasure Island, making sure it was secure until it could be reclaimed by the Crown. The Navy buttons discovered on his land indicate he remained connected to the military, and the extent of his activities, both on land and along the coast, indicates something other than farming. Was Samuel able to Ball has been keeping secrets so valuable enough for the Crown to reward him his judgment? After over 60 years on Oak, in 1840, Samuel Ball of Island died at the 81 years old, leaving a prosperous legacy, property, as well as unresolved issues. In 2017, Samuel Ball's story took an incredibly intimate turn of events when Rick and in the war room, Marty Laganina took a seat with Ivan Boyd and Tony to direct descendants of Samuel. The Boyds brought a strong family with them, tales that have been passed down over the generations. Our mom used to say, "This is our territory belonging to individuals," Ivan said, a sentence it has remained with him throughout his life. For them, the voyage of Samuel Ball was nothing less than remarkable. To accumulate the type of wealth and possess the land that he did, particularly following its amazing to escape slavery, Samuel was regarded as streetwise, keen, and resolute. However, the question remains, did Samuel Ball find anything of value on Oak Island? Ivan Boyd believes he found something, but not the complete reward. The large sum of treasure money is still, he insisted on going out there. I'm hoping that they are the Laganina brothers. However, it truly comes down to the truth. All I want to know is what's concealed there. Thus, the quest continues. Marty Laganina and Rick, as well as their hard-working staff, keeps investigating the former lands of Samuel Ball, where they've exposed silver, jewelry, and other fascinating relics that indicate riches. Although none of these results demonstrate without a doubt that Samuel discovered, they do say that Oak Island Treasure could have discovered something amazing. But this is what is known. The legacy of Samuel Ball is as much about bravery, tenacity, and is as much about bravery, tenacity, and